family story, you know what I mean? It's things you might know. Maybe somebody in your family went through some of these things. Jennifer is a journalist and the founder and editor-in-chief of The Common Magazine. Jennifer Acker, it's an honor to have you on our show. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Where are you? Where are you calling from?
I am calling from Montague, Massachusetts, which is in the western part of the state.
And you got a run going on there in Boston today, right?
Oh yes. I'm happy to be far from the crowd, but cheering on any Massachusetts folks who are running.
How's the weather? They said the weather might be an issue today.
Well, we had a lot of rain this morning, but it seems to have sort of cleared up, but I don't know what it's like out east. I'm hoping for some sun myself.
Okay. So tell me about this. This took us through time and to some family circumstances that we really can relate to or empathize with.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad that you felt that way. What really interested me about this family who are Indian but who live in East Africa is that they have had a 3-continent migration, and that is somewhat unusual for families in that one generation moves under the reign of British colonialism from West India to East Africa, and then a couple of generations live there, and then the next generation migrates to the United States. And I just got to thinking what that does to a family when there's so much uprooting and so much different cultural origins for each generation.
Yeah, and in the parts of the book, it's during a time when we didn't have easy access to information about our own families and ultimately about ourselves, especially if you're looking into your family history. And now, you could do that easily.
Of course, yeah. At the time, you wouldn't know much about how your relatives had fared. If they had gone off to a new country or across an ocean, you might get some letters back, but you might not. And that kind of distance was really much more severe than what we experience now.
So tell me about the story that got you to the story. How did it come to be that you wrote this particular story? Did you spend some time over in India or East Africa?
Well, when I was 17, I spent some time in Kenya before going to college, and that was the first time that I even realized that there was an Indian community in East Africa or in Kenya. And during the time that I lived there, I was really interested, but I didn't have much opportunity to do any research or ask a lot of questions. Then I went to college and graduated from college, and then after that, I started dating a man who was from this community. He was born and raised in America, like my character Sunil, but his parents were from Nairobi, and and this migration story had been was similar to the story of their family, and so and I thought this is really an interesting story, and I began digging into it and talking to people and going to Nairobi to visit his family.
That is interesting, and so and I never had heard. I've heard of Nairobi, but I hadn't heard of Sunil. Is that how you say it?
Yes, that's the American-born son.
Oh, okay, that's his name. So, and are they developed? The fictional characters, are they developed from real people you knew?
I would say there are some biographical details that are similar. When I was constructing the story, it was helpful to sort of think about the timing of the immigration to America, for example, and to think about some of those details. But I wouldn't say that the people themselves are truly based on real people.
Well, this is very intimate, though. Your writings, you've got the personalities of the characters, and as the reader of the book, I was really drawn into the story itself. You do have a lot of emotion, ups and downs, and loves and not so loves.
Very strong emotions, yes. There is a lot of tension in this family between everyone, between husband and wife, between mother and son. between grandfather and grandson. And I think of course, that's natural for families to have those kinds of tensions. But I did really want to push them in this book and make them explicit and show why those emotions were arising. To really dig into the motivations and the psychology and our individual philosophies about how we live our lives.
Yeah, and there's a lot of that based on religious beliefs?
I would say that there are different reasons for the shaping of individual sort of personalities. Of course, we all inherit some kind of cultural beliefs. There are religious beliefs as well. Sunil becomes a student of philosophy, of Western philosophy, and so that really influences his beliefs. His wife, Amy, has a master's in public health, and so she has a much more sort of scientific and pragmatic way of going about things. So that was another thing I wanted to explore, is how individual people develop these belief systems that govern our lives.
And sometimes Sunil's generation and Bimal's generation, you don't want to buck tradition, but you have to sometimes by keeping secrets.
Yes, I mean, there is a lot of social pressure about how to live one's life as well, and cultural pressure, and that can, of course, individual shame or pride, all of those emotions, so that can lead you to keep things that you think are better off hidden, but the other person who is involved in that secret may disagree and think that secret should have come out a long time ago.
Is the Jain universe, is that, first of all, am I saying it right, but is that part of a belief system, or where does that come from?
So that is a religion, the Jain religion, which is similar to Hinduism, but is not the same. It developed in a different way, with some similar ideas about reincarnation, and about how one should live a good life and what happens to you in the next life. So the two are similar, but it is a particular, its own religion.
And the realization that families can stay together without being physically in the same place comes into play here also.
I think that's really hard, and it's something that people all over the world experience. And even in America, if you go off to college, or if your parents get divorced, or there are all sorts of ways in which we don't have the sort of extended family in a similar geographic location in a way that maybe lives were lived a century or so ago. And I do think that distance and that mobility puts a strain on families of all kinds, and I did want to look at that with this particular family.
Is there an obvious contrast between the experience of the immigrant going from India to East Africa as opposed to going from East Africa to the United States?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I think any kind of migration will enact similar kinds of strains and difference, and feelings of isolation and of finding your home in a new place. But certainly, the new community that you move into, that you're surrounded in, is different in each of those places, and that will have an effect. I think one of the major factors of that move from India to East Africa, of course, was colonialism. So that was the system that everyone was living under, which was very hierarchical. And the move to America would have been different in that way.
Was the research that you did, was it very emotional for you?
It was fascinating. I don't know that it was emotional so much, but it was just fascinating, and to learn about these migrations, but also how many different communities of Indians are in East Africa, that different religions and different castes and people from different places in the country, and there are Indian communities all over Africa, in South Africa, in Tanzania, And so just learning more about that diaspora was important to me, and of course I would share everything that I learned with my husband.
Jennifer, what a joy to talk to you. Thank you so much for being on the air with us. Jennifer sent us a copy of her book, The Limits of the World, so call us if you would like the copy. I will pick a caller at random, and it's yours. The number is 622-9622. If I don't answer the phone, that means somebody else was picked. Let's see, I found it on Amazon. Do you have a website you'd like to recommend for us?
My website is jenniferacker.com.
All right, very good. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
You're welcome. We'll be right back.